Hello everyone, in this video I'll be showing you an Ice Gloom Stalker Assassin build guide from Baldur's Gate 3. So this will be utilizing the Ranger and the Rogue subclasses, and we also got a few different twists that I'll be showing you throughout this video. Now we'll be dealing pure ice damage, which is very good in Baldur's Gate 3 because it's actually quite easy to apply vulnerability to cold damage. So we're going to have it on our main weapon. In addition, we're going to deal cold damage with our bow. So this can be really dangerous if you're a enemy that is weak to cold damage, but if not, we can apply the vulnerability for double damage. So we're going to be starting with the Ranger, as getting to level 5 is our first priority here for that extra attack. As for our favorite enemy, you can go with the Ranger Knight to get heavy armor proficiency right off the bat. That's really nice just for overall survivability because it's going to be a martial class primarily, so being up front with heavy armor is quite nice, although typically we're going to want to use medium armor. As for our natural explorer, you can go with like a fire. Cold resistance makes sense because we're going to be applying wet to targets, but you can go with fire. I feel like that's thematically feels correct here. Beast Tamer does get you fine familiar without expending a spell slot, which is really nice because you can always have a familiar with you. As for our ability score, dexterity is our big stat here, constitution, and a little bit of wisdom. That is a nice thing to have for even just noticing other enemies that are stealthing. If you have high wisdom, you're going to be more proficient at checking for that. So overall, I think it's best to have most of your points into your dexterity and constitution, so you can take constitution up to 16 would be ideal, but you can push around stats, strength, or dex or charisma, but we're mostly going to be focusing on dex weapons, so we'll stick with the high dexterity. However, if you have the Hag's Hair, if this is for your main character, put that +1 into your dexterity. If not, take 16 and then put the last 2 points into strength or intelligence, just to round out your ability scores for less -1s to saving throws. I'll be going over the gear at the end and a bit of combat just to show you what you should be doing in combat. So at level 2, for our spells that we're going to select, Ensnaring Strike's nice. It does use our wisdom stat to roll for the ensnare. But Hail of Thorns and Hunter's Mark are two other good ones. This is a bonus action spell, allows you to deal additional 1d6 slashing damage. Not a bad weapon, early game damage option to put on targets, especially tankier enemies. And Hail of Thorns is okay. It gives you 1d10 piercing in addition, so a little bit extra damage, but it does use your bonus action. And Ensnaring Strike also uses a bonus action too, but it gives you crowd control. There's lots of potions to speak with animals, so don't bother with that. And Long Strider's nice, but you can have someone at your camp apply it. As well, Fog Cloud's another really great spell for heavily obscuring targets, and this can be really useful early on just for giving yourself a bit of stealth. So we can go with that, or Hail of Thorns. Some people really like Hail of Thorns, so you could take that. Now, it makes sense to go with the +2 to archery, because we're going to be a ranger for early game. But I think that a +1 to armor class is actually the bigger benefit here, so we're going to go with that. And 2-weapon fighting is another nice one. When you make an attack with your offhand weapon, you can add your ability modifier to the damage of its attack. So that could be another good option. I just think that the +1 armor class is a solid choice for us early game, especially in late game. As for our subclass, we are going to go with obviously the Gloom Stalker, which gives us the Dread Ambusher +3 to initiative. That's quite huge. In addition, on our first turn in combat, we get to move an additional 3 meters, and we make an extra attack that deals an additional 1d8 damage. Unreal. We also get superior dark vision up to 24 meters. Dread Ambusher Hide and Umbral Shroud. So this becomes invisible for 10 turns. It's an action. Pretty nice if you're hidden in the shadows. Like if you go into a fog cloud, you can use that. And Disguise Self, nice to have. For our spells, either Hail of Thorns or Ensnaring Strike. Rather, you want to go with a crowd control or Hail of Thorns for extra damage. I don't use these a lot because you're better off doing other options for damage, but they can be nice if you want to use your bonus action. As for our next level, we get our first feat, and this is nice because we want to take our dexterity up as high as we can get it, so that will give us another +1 armor class and initiative, basically ensuring that we go first, and it'll also give better attack rolls for our weapons, so dexterity is a huge stat. At level 5, we get ourselves the extra attack and Misty Step. This is a big power spike for us because not only is extra attack unreal, we also get to do Misty Step as a bonus action for getting to the enemy or getting away from the enemy. So pretty much anything is, we're not getting stopped. A pretty good concentration, since we're not going to be using a ton of them, is Spike Growth. Typically a druid would use this, but if you don't play with druids, you can use this because their woodland being that they get at level 7 would be able to apply this without holding concentration. But we can take it because we're not going to be We don't care a whole lot about holding a concentration. It's nice to have it, but I also recommend playing a Drow because you get Darkness at level 2, or level 5, level 2 spell there, so once per long rest. Really nice for this build. And level 6, it would be nice to continue on to get the favorite enemy, but I think it's actually best to add into the equation the Rogue, because then we can get sneak attacks. Whenever we advantage, we get an additional 1d6 of damage to that enemy. And we can also do it with a sneak attack range. So, obviously Sleight of Hand is great, but Stealth is one we definitely want to have. I would even recommend going with Acrobatics, because it's going to give us the resistance to being shoved, so a much higher chance of staying in place. Which Sleight of Hand's good, but you can also use like someone else to lock picks. It's really up to you if you want lock picks or resist being shoved, but we'll go with something like that there. Pretty powerful. Next level, we get our bonus action hide, dash, and disengage. This can be a build you can do solo honor mode with, because it's just that good. As for our subclass, the Thief has some merit. An extra bonus action does do a lot of good, and you get resistance to fall damage, but that's whatever. Extra bonus action is huge. That is the, I would say, the best level 3 perk out of any class. An extra bonus action is massive. But we're going with the Assassin here because we get the Assassin initiative here, so you're deadly with unprepared enemies. In combat, you have an advantage on attack rolls against creatures that haven't taken a turn yet. Also proccing our ability to sneak attack. Pretty big. We also get ambush, so any successful attack roll against a surprise creature is a critical hit. So you probably want to have the Quasite Shovel, Basket, or Fork, whatever you did name it. Look up Shovel the Quasite, and that is a very useful thing here because it can surprise the enemies, and then you can ambush them. So, really good build. Assassin Alacrity, so you restore your action and bonus action at the start of combat. That's pretty nice if you go into combat, like, stabbing at people, and then you regain your action, which you would normally lose. So, very useful. The Assassin's quite good. Now, we can take the extra perk here, but there's even other ways we can supplement this. So, just a couple that I would like to just touch on. We don't have to go with them, but as you can add in the Barbarian, which gives you Rage, which is not a bad use of a bonus action. You can Rage, and then we can eventually pick the Tiger Heart Barbarian to apply Bleed to targets. Or we could also go with the Bear Heart, which will give you resistance to all damage types. So that can be a nice choice. I think that the Fighter actually works really well here. This gives us a bit of extra damage too, because we're going to be able to use Superiority Die if we go with the Battle Master, or we can go with the Eldritch Knight. Like, there's a few really good options that we could add in here. I think that adding in Fighter is solid. Alternatively, you can add in Paladin if you want to get 2 levels of Paladin will give you Smites. So that's a pretty good mix as well. But I even just think that the Fighter's great, because then we can get another fighting style, and then we can take our 2-weapon fighting to add our ability modifier to the damage that we roll when we attack with 2 weapons. And you can also even take archery, so that's another great option, +2 to a ranged weapon attack. Depends if you're going to be using if you're going to go up close and melee more, go with 2-weapon fighting. Archery if not. And at level 2 here, we get ourselves Action Surge. You know the deal with Action Surge. This is just incredible. So this is a really big spike. And then for this final level here, I guess we had 2 more levels. We can go with, I think it's actually best to go all the way 4 levels Fighter. 4 levels of Rogue will get you a feat, but we can also just as easily do that here. And for the Battle Master, this gives us the additional 1d6 or 1d8 of damage. 1d8 of damage, and then it scales to 1d10. We won't get that. However, Eldritch Knight also works because we can get the weapon bond, so you can hold the weapon in your hand, and if it's a throwing weapon, it returns. So this can actually work really well if you want to use something a little bit different for your main hand weapon. And even Champion for the increased critical hit chance. I think this is the popular choice, but this just reduces the number that you need to roll a critical hit by 1, which is nice. It's like a 5% increase to your overall crit chance. Very great. But I think adding in the Battle Master is nice because it gives us Riposte. Now, Riposte gives us a way to weaponize our reaction. Anytime you can get damage on a reaction, that's huge in Baldur's Gate. So this will deal an additional 1d8 damage too. So whenever a creature misses you, which is going to be often, we have a high armor class. We get to get an additional 1d8 damage attack. Some other options that I really like. Menacing Attack actually gives us this gives us a way to crowd control a bit. So this can be a nice one to have for potentially making the target frightened. Trip Attack can make a target go prone, and that gives us Sneak Attack. So I also really like trip attack. Menacing attack's great too, but you can really go with one of those choices. I think those are some of the best. Disarming strike is also, or disarming attack is also nice to knock the weapon out of the enemy's hand. But I think what riposte, menacing attack, and trip attack fits perfectly on this build, so we'll go with that. And then for our final level, we'll get ourselves a feat and take our dexterity up to 20. However, you could also go with sharpshooter to give you -5 to attack rolls, but a +10 to damage, which is honestly really nice. I personally just think that taking your dexterity up high is going to be the best choice there. So yeah, this is the build. We're going to be using ice damage. So this gets pretty crazy. I will show you a few different weapon combinations, and I'll show you a bit of combat with it as well. So right now I just have the Rhapsody and the Cold Snap equipped. This actually gives you a +1 to armor class in the offhand, so that's pretty good. And then also it has the chilling counter, so when a creature misses you with an attack, it must succeed a 13 Constitution saving throw or be chilled for 2 turns. So yeah, you can give an offhand chill, and that will give you an increased tier cold damage. So if you have a sorcerer or a Tempest Cleric, or I guess any kind of spellcaster with Cone of Cold, like even a Bard level 10 can take it, they'll get double damage on their attacks from that. So that's really huge. I also think that a good option to go with is actually the Age of the Flail of the Ages. However, this doesn't give you sneak attack. That's one thing you got to remember, but it applies the chilled condition. So one nice thing about this is you can apply the Elemental Age here. I didn't take the dual wielder perk, but one thing you can do is actually put this in the offhand and buff your main hand weapon, and then you got ice attacks on you get chilled attacks on your main hand. So that can be really good as well. So that's another choice that you can go with. If you want to focus more on strength, you can take strength potions. I'm also using the Gaunter Mail there for Celestial Haste. Giving yourself haste is huge. And crossbows work, but the Hellfire hand crossbow is one of the best, and that's fire damage. It can apply burning, which doesn't help our build at all. So I went with the Gaunter Mail there. But we can also even, if you got strength potions, take the Titan String Bow. Deadshot will give you a higher critical hit chance, which is also really nice. And even like the any crossbow will do decent. Near Misser will also do well for it's pure force damage if you're able to freeze a target. So if you chill a target and then apply water to it from like a water bottle, you can freeze them and then hit them with force damage, and it'll deal double damage. So that's a nice option. But we're going with the Snowburst ring here because when we deal cold damage, we also create a ring of ice around the target. And I'll show you how that gets pretty crazy because we can apply it with the Flail of the Ages. However, I think it's actually best to go with like, this is my, I think, ideal setup here is having the Cold Snap in the offhand there. And we get that extra damage from it. And it also gives us that +1 armor class. And it gives us that 13 Constitution saving throw chilled on the target. And then the Blade of the First Blood here will, the number you need to roll a critical hits reduced by 1. And you get the ability to apply vulnerability to piercing. So we can give piercing vulnerability and set up cold vulnerabilities. Throwing water bottles is going to help out a lot here. I'm using the Helm of Baldur for the heal, critical hits. +1 armor class, +1 armor. I guess only the armor's there. And the Killer Sweetheart for the critical hits, huge. Amulet of Greater Health, 145 health, pretty sweet. And also, we're going to be applying a lot of conditions with this build. So I went with the Boots of Stormy Clamor to give 2 turns of reverberation, which will knock the target prone, and then we can sneak attack. So this actually has so much synergy. But the Winter's Crutches, whenever we deal cold damage, we apply 2 turns of Encrusted with Frost. And the Snowburst ring will make a Ring of Frost. So I'll show you exactly what we want to do here. So we got our weapons there. We got cold damage in the offhand. But what we can do is I have Shadowheart equipped here with the Drake Throat Glaive. So what we can go with a ranged weapon attack. So we're going to pull our bow out here. And then you can just switch back to Shadowheart. And then she can use this and the elemental weapon Cold. And then you can apply it on yourself. So then now the bow has the cold applied to it. So anytime we do a range attack, we deal additional 1d4 cold, which is going to trigger all of our items. So we'll trigger the Boots of Stormy Clamor for reverberation, and it also triggers with ability drain the Illithid ability. So this is really easy to proc. Winter's Crutches, 3 turns of frost, or 2 turns of frost, and then a 4.5 meter circle. Where this build gets really crazy is we got a special little thing. It's in my inventory. So we scroll down, we can find it. There's a special little thing called Arrow of Many Targets. And that right there can hit multiple rings of fire, or rings of ice. So as you're about to see, we're going to proc a bunch of ice rings around And I guess it only hits her, my bad. Hostile targets will get covered in ice and it'll knock them prone. This is crazy because you'll be able to give a lot of targets weakness to your attacks. So we got trip attack as a nice option, but sneak attack's extra damage on anyone you got advantage against. We're not going to be able to proc our special abilities from the Gloom Stalker Ranger, but yeah, we typically just want to be shooting with the arrow of many targets as much as you can. The arrow of ice is also a good choice too, because you can it can hit in an area and then apply ice, and then you can trip people. It never gets old. It's really, really effective. And then we also got a few different shots like the Bolt of Guiding Light there, which will also give ice. Everyone's just falling down. You can also apply spike growth for a bit of crowd control, so that will override the ice, but you can trip people with that pretty easily. And all you have to do is attack with just your regular bow attacks, and you deal ice damage. So that's pretty good. I would recommend maybe putting the spike growth away from pretty much everyone, because yeah, it's gonna ruin our ability to make the ice surfaces. So we can put this elsewhere and kind of drive people in to give that ice slip effect. That is perfect for anyone that is I gotta walk through my own thing there. We can sneak attack whenever they get knocked prone, so that's a really nice benefit to this build. But I'm not gonna hit that one. Oh, I did hit that one. And then we got our sneak attack here. So this is typically the strategy, is you want to go and sneak attack whenever you cause the icy surfaces there. But overall, we got survivability with heals. We got the ability to turn invisible, so we can kind of get out of the way. And another nice thing is you can cancel your spike growth at any time, so you knew that. But we also got trip attack, so if we get up close, we can start hitting people with that and then cause them to fall down. In addition, if you do want to go the strength route without using the offhand cold snap, I guess one thing too, I guess I should show, is attacking with the offhand will create that ice surface, so it's a little bit tricky because you can make yourself trip. But we can also do that with the Flail of the Age. It's a really fun weapon. This returns from Baldur's Gate 2. We also get our own elemental age, and we can make it the glacial age, which gives us, this is really powerful. It gives us extra damage. In addition, it'll also gives us it'll apply chilled on the target, so extra bonus, but encrust it with frost and chilled. So you can go up and it does pretty good damage. You're going to likely knock them prone with that, and then you just keep attacking with advantage. The only unfortunate part is you can't attack with you can't do your sneak attacks with this weapon, but you can with a bow. So you can attack, you can kind of zoom your way, Misty Step out of there and hit them with a bow. That's one nice thing about Misty Step, is it gives you a lot of options for playing stealthy, but then also getting around the battlefield and doing some crazy stuff like this. So yeah, make sure you use your arrows. They do a good amount of ice damage, and they will only apply the ice if you hit a target. So that is an Ice Gloom Stalker Ranger Rogue or Assassin multi-class build guide. Threw in the Battlemaster Fighter, but as I said, you can go with like the Barbarian, or you can just go all points into the Rogue or Ranger. So thank you so much for watching. If you found this video useful, please hit the subscribe button below. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.